Welcome to the Healing Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Rowana Abbensetts-Dobson. I'm a Black woman, a writer, an author, a wife, and a mom. Through my ups and downs with depression and anxiety, I've become intentional about healing, learning my history, developing self-love, and finding joy in every moment. As a mental health advocate and a publisher of Black women writers, I am deeply aware of the power of the voice and the importance of making sure all voices are heard. On this podcast, I hope to share my journey as well as introduce you to remarkable guests whose voices have been life-changing for me. I hope this conversation opens up a new possibility of greatness for you in your life. And welcome back to the Healing Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Rowana Abbensetts-Dobson, founder of Spoken Black Girl, and I'm here talking to Monetta Wilson, and we are very honored to have Monetta here today as a guest. Monetta has been teaching yoga for over 11 years in the Caribbean where she lives. She is passionate about decolonizing and sharing yoga with her community. Monetta began practicing yoga over 20 years ago in the Coast Guard. In 2015, when she won the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce Young Entrepreneur of the Year award for her innovation used in the establishment of her yoga business. She has published 2 yoga books to help make yoga more accessible to children and Black women. So we are very honored to have Monetta here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So let's start right off with the books. Please tell me, what is your latest book?
Actually, my latest book is a book of poetry. It's a little passion project that the way I think of it is sometimes it's easier for me to process my feelings by writing poems, and people might connect to it, so I published it. But my most recent big project is my book for women. It's my yoga book for women. It centers Black women because it centers me, and it's called 5 Minutes of Peace Yoga for Today's Women. And it's a collection of yoga practices that are each 5 poses and should take you about 5 minutes to do. For people who feel they can't go to yoga class, they don't have enough time to try yoga, you can, if you have 5 minutes, you can try it using my book.
That is awesome. Yes, I'm all for making yoga more accessible and changing the image of yoga and letting Black women know, yes, yoga is for you. Because I feel like that's a big kind of misconception in our community. Do you ever like run into any pushback for that?
Sorry. Yes, pushback is like the name of the game. We could be here for an entire day talking about running into pushback, but I'll just share that very often, especially when I taught at resorts, people would show up to the class, and even though my face was on the poster where they found out about the class, they would walk past me and up to another guest who was white to ask questions when I was right there in the front. Another time I showed up to a resort, the first time I showed up, someone says to me, "You're the yoga teacher? You can't be the yoga teacher. You're Black."
What? That's so
So,
beyond rude. That's racist. That's, yeah.
well, sometimes our people uphold white supremacy. So that's the thing. And then online, well, you know about online. Online is online. People will say about anything. People accuse me of cultural appropriation, yet I never see them accuse white people teaching yoga of cultural appropriation. And they usually accuse me of that when I'm talking about the colonization of yoga. Then they turn around and tell me about cultural appropriation. But the thing is, actually, my ancestors are from India. I identify as a Black woman because various reasons. Like there were racial tensions in the Caribbean in the 80s when I grew up. And so it was a little bit one drop rule, you know, where you're not mixed. If you have 4C hair and dark skin, and I used to go outside, I used to be a lot darker, you're not Indian, you're black. And so, you know, I always say the cops don't care what you're mixed with when they stop you. You're black, you know? And so I'm like, wait a minute. Do not want to so when they accuse me of cultural appropriation, I'm like, do we want to start talking about why my ancestors left India and came to the Caribbean as indentured laborers? Do we want to talk about that history that
Yeah,
a lot of people know
exactly.
about? Like we can talk about that, but oh, so that's
And
just
the
some
other
of
thing,
the fun
even
line.
like, among um African Americans or Black people, there is Kemetic yoga. There's
Right.
yoga being practiced in ancient
Mm-hmm.
Kemet. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can trace so many ways, trace yoga back in time, in our
Right.
ancestry, and so there's really no basis for that argument.
Look. And it's like, how exactly am I calling it culturally appropriation when I'm just saying white people colonize yoga, yo, and the things they're doing is not really like that's not what it's about. It's not about your Lululemons and your whatever bottle is trendy these days.
So, how do you think, as we reclaim yoga for Black women, how do you think that we can customize or not even customize, but tailor the experience to the needs of Black women?
I think in the West, in yoga spaces, upper class white women have been centered. So just decentering whiteness is a place to start. Decentering whiteness, which sounds like a simple thing, but apparently is one of the most controversial things. So we can start with decentering whiteness. We can also not, when we decenter whiteness in yoga, we're decentering white bodies. So we're allowing, when we're doing the movement parts, um we were allowing for different types of bodies, because people tend to think of the white body as standard, and all of a sudden all of these hips, all of this butt, all of these thighs, all of these shoulders, all of these
Mm-hmm.
muscles is all of a sudden not desirable. So we can start by that, decentering whiteness. And another big way is by, there's the idea that if you practice yoga, you're supposed to be all peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. But if some people among us are oppressed, and we're saying peace and love by ignoring the oppression, the systemic
Mm.
justices, if the yoga we're teaching is pretending like those things don't exist in the name of unity, then the people who experiencing them will not feel comfortable in this space. So we have to be careful in things like choosing our language, making the space welcoming to different people. Because sometimes, as a Black woman, you just step into a room and it could be all the art on the wall. It could be the song playing. It could be something really simple, and all of a sudden you're uncomfortable and you feel unwelcomed and you kind of don't quite feel safe. So for us to make Black people, particularly Black women, feel safe, we have to have those kinds of, we have to create the space that where they will
Mm-hmm.
feel welcome. And even some places you can even go further, especially when you practice with black teachers. They can even go further to explore their own culture. For example,
Yeah.
some people do R&B yoga. So it's just yoga where they play R&B music. And that
Mm-hmm.
might be an entry point for someone to think, let me try that because that's the music of my culture. I like
Mm-hmm.
that. Maybe I'll be more open to it. So simple things that.
Yeah, I love that. It's called consciously being inclusive, and a lot of people or a lot of these yoga studios, not all, I've been to like some nice ones, but a lot of them are not consciously inclusive and are even consciously exclusive and try to act like, you're weird for having a bad experience. there. Okay, been there, done that. Been to that yoga class. Okay.
Like sometimes I know people have said I lucky for me in a certain way, one of the reasons I became a yoga teacher is because there were basically no yoga studios in St. Lucia. There was one and it was really far away and was run by a white foreigner. We won't talk about it.
Okay.
Uh, we won't talk about it. Um, but like sometimes you show up to a yoga studio, a black woman, a black person will show up to a yoga studio and they'll sign up for the class and and when they show up, the person at the front desk will be like, this is an advanced class, right?
Oh, I've had that exact experience. And I'm like, yeah, I've been practicing yoga for years. I'll
Right.
keep up. Don't worry about me.
And it's
Okay.
like, and in the back of your mind, you're like, I didn't see her tell anybody else that. Actually, I saw them
They
when,
always assume you're like a newcomer to it, like, or you don't know what it's really about. It's like, this isn't
and then
your.
then you see some like little blondie wearing the right clothes come in with the right water bottle and that. Oh my! And you're sitting there and you were like,
Yep.
I see what we're doing here. I
Mm-hmm.
must be returning to this place.
Trying
Like,
to intimidate you, make you second guess
right,
yourself, you
right.
know?
It's like simple things like that can make it uncomfortable for people. And a lot of them don't want to even change that. Um,
Yeah, they don't.
right,
I
which
feel
is
like if you wanted to, you would, right?
it's 2025, people. It's
So
2025.
I'm so proud of you for, no wonder you won Entrepreneur of the Year. That is extremely innovative and definitely what your community needed. So cheers to you. One
Uh,
question I have
mhm.
is, I know you started your career, well, first you said you were with the Coast Guard, and then you said that you transitioned to teaching and you
Mhm.
were a math teacher, and then you transitioned to being a yoga teacher. And also, I will say that I am, supportive of as many new beginnings and new chapters in life as, you want to have. So, cheers to you. But I just wonder what spurred the transition from a math teacher to a yoga teacher?
Well, actually, I was always gonna be a temporary teacher. I was working in local government in New York City. And my training is environmental science. And I realized that things were not gonna work out with my work permit, etc. So in the end, I ended up moving back to my home country here in St. Lucia. And I run into an old teacher of mine. She's like, "We need a math teacher. Won't you come teach math?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." Actually, I don't think I've said that anywhere. I actually taught before when I was 18 years old. I taught high school math and science. Yeah.
Wow.
It works kind of differently here. You like they have like a pathway for people who don't have training, the like education degree. So when I was 18, I taught high school math and science before for one semester to 16-year-olds.
Wow.
That was so tiny.
This has been
So
really good.
um so I run into my teacher and she's like, "You taught before, right?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yeah, we need a math teacher." I was like, "Okay, I'll apply." So I ended up teaching there for 3 years from 2010 to 2013. But then what happened, I'd been diagnosed with endometriosis already. But then in 2012, my brother was watching the carnival parade here and someone shot into the crowd and he was killed. So imagine
I'm
as
so
shocked as you
sorry.
are right now. And then we had a few things happen afterwards and I ended up being diagnosed with fibromyalgia from the trauma. Apparently, that's a thing that happens. So my rheumatologist was telling me that I should go back to yoga because she was like, I couldn't exercise, and then I probably like needed to manage my stress, etc. So I was like, I miss running. My coping mechanism is running. I miss running, and so she's like, you should go back to yoga, and that's how come I transitioned to yoga because I was like, okay, fine. I've been thinking about doing the certification. I'll do the certification. And I applied for that. But at the same time, there was some internal stuff happening at my school, and my contract didn't get renewed. But they didn't tell me till I finished the training and came back. and they were like, oh, we didn't, they told me last minute, so I couldn't do anything about it. By the time I found out, I couldn't get into another school because all the schools were full. So
Mm.
I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll be a yoga teacher now. And I was like, let me see how I can, don't have no business degree. We'll start a business.
Awesome.
Like, I have strength, I have knowledge, I have internet, I have a phone, I'll start a yoga business.
That's
And
awesome.
that's how comes I ended up doing it. My brother died.
I'm so sorry that it's like started that way or that was
Yeah.
the impetus, but
But it's been
you've been
really,
doing amazing
yeah.
things.
And my brother was someone who was always helping people in the community. And now I'm helping people in the community. So
Yeah.
we can look at it that way.
Yeah. So you mentioned that chronic illness is something that you deal with on the daily. So how have you used yoga to manage your chronic illness? And what would you recommend to folks who are struggling with chronic illnesses, but they still want to try yoga or get into a regular yoga practice?
So I do have to say that when people think of yoga, because of how it's been popularized in the West, they only think of the movement, the exercise part. But yoga is so much more than that. Out of the 8 parts of yoga, exercise is only one part of yoga. And while, exercise is great for helping you manage your illnesses, you can just take a leisurely walk for 30 minutes every day, and that will help your illness. So I like to instead talk about the other parts, which people tend to get bored when I say that. But the breathing, for me, what has been most helpful to me personally has been the breathing. Because when you have chronic illness, you're always dealing with something. And being able to tap into your breath to it, whether it is to help you calm down if you're feeling overwhelmed, whether it is to help you just focus so you can relax for a procedure, or whether you're in a lot of pain and you just need to breathe until your medication kicks in, that's been really helpful. And also there's the idea in yoga of like focusing on the now instead of on the future and or in the past, and like not comparing your past self to your this self. And so when you have chronic illness, you tend to be like, I used to be able to run 8 miles. I can barely make it to the bathroom today, that sort of thing. And then yoga can give you those kinds of skills through the different parts of yoga, like breathing, meditation, and even there's part of yoga called sense withdrawal that can help you manage pain. So it's so much more than exercise. However, some people find when they start doing the asana part, the exercise, the movement of yoga, things like their blood pressure gets easier to manage, they can sleep better, they have less sugar cravings. It really depends on the person, and I've seen like all different effects on people. So I would say, like, honestly, if you're being careful and you're not trying to do anything too out there that might give you an injury, you can't really go wrong for starting yoga.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there's levels to it, and you know, it's not all movement, I think that sometimes intimidates people, but
Mm-hmm.
there's many different aspects. Yeah, if you have any resources that you want to share for folks, well, besides your book, which seems like a great resource, for folks who are dealing with chronic illness but still wanting to, access yoga, if you have anything you want to share.
So there's actually we might not be as popular, but there's a lot of people sharing different things online. There's accessible yoga. There's a lot of other teachers who share different things for yoga for people with chronic illness. However, I will also be doing a 2-week bed yoga challenge to let people know that yoga is so accessible, you don't even have to get out of bed. And for 2 weeks, if you sign up for my website, monettawilson.com, every day you will get an email to your inbox with a video of a practice that you can do in bed. Some of the days it's breathing, some of the days it's movement. And I I will share that every day for 2 weeks, and people who really wanting to start a yoga practice and may have different physical limitations, or maybe just tired. Like, life is hard. People are tired. So maybe you want to do the practice at the end of the day, and like when you're in bed at the end of the day, you can do it. So you can sign up on my website and join me for those 2 weeks. It's gonna go live on April 1st, and hopefully people will do it for the first 2 weeks and maybe find each other online or community or that sort of thing. But it won't matter what day you sign up for it. It will just, whatever day you sign up will be your first day, and it will send you a new one every 2 weeks. And I hope after doing that for 2 weeks, people will feel inspired to keep going with their own personal practice.
Right. I'm definitely signing up. I am definitely signing up. And you also reminded me when you were talking about, how life is hard and, people are just tired. A lot of people are just tired. I got reminded of how tired I am, as a mother of two, particularly, and a business owner. All of that can just lead to exhaustion. So, and I too have been looking to like get back to consistency with my yoga practice. So I'm really excited about that. But it also made me think about you mentioned that your book has some advice for moms to be and, prenatal yoga tips and advice or positions folks can try. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, so on top of the 10 5-minute routines, I actually have some breathing practices that I share and some meditation practices that I share. I haven't looked at my book in so long. Breathing and relaxation and meditation. I do share those. But I also have one prenatal routine and one postnatal routine. Because didn't have any kids myself, but I have worked with moms and pregnant people. And so the body goes through so much changes, and also it can be a stressful time. So there are certain poses that need to be modified. And I didn't want to do a 5-minute routine because with your body being basically different every day, I wanted to give people enough information so that they could support their body. That's why I made those practices a little longer, because pregnant people and people who just gave birth need a little extra care.
Okay.
Yeah,
Definitely. Thank you
yeah.
so much for doing that and thinking of that. Yeah, go on. Did you have more?
No, it's okay. I was just saying pregnant people need extra care, so I put those routines in there so they didn't feel left out.
Yes, we can definitely agree on that. All right, Mo. See, I realize I'm just gonna call you Mo now so that I don't mess
That's
with the
fine.
T. Can you tell folks where they can buy your book and sign up for this challenge coming up? Or we won't call it a challenge. It's more like a yoga experience, this online
I
virtual
honestly have
experience.
been thinking of not calling it a challenge, but I couldn't find a word. I couldn't find a word that would make it not be a challenge, because honestly, this is not. I'll come up with a word. I'll come up with a word. I'll come up with something, because I feel like it's not so much a challenge as much as a I don't know what it is. Because I also want to say that when you mentioned being tired, I feel like people give the idea that if you're tired, if you're overwhelmed, if you're struggling with your illness, that you're doing something wrong, that you're weak, that you're lazy. And I just wanted to say that I want to like hold space for these people, because that's supremacy culture. Honestly, that's supremacy culture. We can trace that back to the plantation. I'm going to step off my soapbox, but that is supremacy culture, and people should know that it's totally normal, fine, okay to be tired, to
Yeah.
feel the heaviness and the weight of all of the things you are going through. It's all of those feelings you feel in response to trauma, oppression, the state of the world, illness. That's normal. And in yoga, we don't shy away from those. We either through breathing, through moving, we use what our tools that we've developed to process that. that being said, that step off my
Yes, snap,
soapbox.
snaps.
I tend to go up on my soapbox and go on little rants and be like, you are
This
enough.
is the time.
You are enough just as you are. Your body is the body you have right now is enough for you to come to yoga. Everything about you right now is enough. Who you are right now is enough to work on who you would like to be. Like let's just make one thing clear. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to whatever it is you're going through, however you respond to that, as long as you're not harming other people, totally fine. But for the challenge, sign up on my website. My book is available on Amazon in Kindle format and paperback. And the women's book is actually available in hardcover. Let me show it to you.
Ooh, shiny. Love hardcovers.
Color.
Yes, beautiful.
So it's available. My books are available on Amazon, but because that's the devil website, and some people want to avoid the devil website, the ebooks are also available for purchase on my Patreon. Patreon.com/yoga with Mo. You don't have to be a member. Patreon has a shop feature, so you can just buy the book and download it right away to read it. And that's where you can find my books. And if you go to my website, you can find all the links to my social media.
Okay, all right, y'all. Make sure you check in with Mo and sign up for all of the things and check out her book. It was such a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.